kind of a sign that we're starting. We'll wait just 1 or 2 more minutes. I think there are a couple of more people joining us, but very exciting to see you all, and also to not see all those who are joining us digitally. Are there more people coming, or should we just start? Start? Great. All right. So now, properly. Welcome everyone to the film seminar Rethinking 8, Lessons from Refugee-led Response. As Norway rethinks how it delivers aid, I wanted to start with a question. What would change if refugee-led responses were treated as the starting point, rather than the backup plan? We are humbled by the overwhelming interest in this topic, with close to 300 people signed up to attend here at Vega, but also online. My name is Cindy Horst, and I'm a research professor at the Peace Research Institute Oslo, PRIO, where I've led the Aid Account project, which the film was created through. And this project focused on how local responders understand and practice accountability. And I'm currently leading the Expand project, which explores holistic approaches to long-term displacement that are developed locally. And both projects were funded by the Research Council of Norway with an amazing team of researchers from Uganda, Sri Lanka, Somalia, and Norway. Today's event is jointly organized by PRIO, the Norwegian Council for Africa, Fellesrådet for Africa, and the Caribou Foundation. It speaks to ongoing discussions about Norway's project Turning Point on rethinking aid. We are therefore very, very grateful to have State Secretary Stine Renate Hårheim joining us today to listen, to learn, and to engage. So just very briefly, we will begin with a film, and then afterwards I'll introduce the 2 panelists, Kuol and Wairimu, and we'll have a conversation together here. And following this, I'll invite the State Secretary to offer some reflections on the discussion. And from there will be also time for questions from the audience at Vega to Kuol and Wairimu. And I'm sure we won't have time for all your questions and reflections, but please feel free to continue the conversation afterwards, either here or in writing. So we'll now begin with a short documentary, Filling the Gap or Taking the Lead. It was produced by the Refugee Law Project based in Kampala, in collaboration with the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, NTNU, and Makerere University. The film was inspired, and it builds on research by Dr. Emmanuel Viga, and it highlights refugee-led initiatives in Uganda. So now, if you in the back can start the film. Thank you.
Localization can only and will only actually succeed when refugee-led organizations are actually given a space in designing program and implementation of this program.
Driving through Bidbidi refugee settlement, one visually witnesses what the life of refugees from South Sudan is like. What used to be vast empty land is now occupied by numerous small villages referred to as settlements. Initially designed to accommodate 150,000 refugees, Bidibidi is now considered the third largest refugee settlement in the world, hosting 196,297 refugees. The region's economy is largely based on agriculture, with arable farming and fishing from the waters of the Nile being the primary sources of livelihood, together with small-scale trade. The area has a rich and complex history, both within and outside of its borders, that has been shaped and impacted by various conflicts over the years. The most recent were the clashes in neighboring South Sudan in 2013 that descended into a violent civil war, forcing many of its citizens to flee their homes in search of safety. This situation worsened over the years, with waves of violence and humanitarian crises driving thousands of people across the border into neighboring countries for refuge. The South Sudan crisis prompted the United Nations to mount emergency responses through humanitarian support, while the political heads engaged in resolving the country's impasse.
Co-hosts of this important event.
This global effort culminated in Kampala's Global Summit of 2017, which saw the global pledge to devise a remedy to deal with South Sudanese displacement in Uganda.
The South Sudan refugee crisis is the fastest growing in the world today.
Of the past year, Uganda remains a symbol of the integrity of the refugee protection regime that unfortunately is not being respected everywhere in the world.
If the international community assists us to cope with these challenges, we shall manage as we have always done in the past.
The UK is continuing to support. In 2017, we have committed $50 million to the refugee response here in Uganda. The United Kingdom stands ready to do more to support Ugandan comprehensive refugee response framework and is designing a multi-year program to that effect. And therefore we strongly encourage regional leaders to redouble coordinated efforts to bring an end to the violence and encourage a genuinely inclusive political process in South Sudan.
Refugees in Uganda have always helped themselves and each other get by. Sometimes individually, sometimes collectively. This can be in forms of sharing what one has, taking in orphans, contributing to functions, or engaging in collective digging and construction. Such practices are deeply rooted in the social and cultural ethos of being through other people.
Today we are coming to the garden where we hire our garden, and we are coming to see how the garden is moving on, how we are cultivating in Bidibidi settlement. We hire the land, depending on understanding between you and the host community or the landlord. We do hire 20,000, we hire at 30,000. Oh, for today we hire this at 50,000, and this is how we cultivate. Oh yeah, this is the way they are right now. Oya is getting these people, they dig for you, and you cook for them food, you don't pay them money. And tomorrow also we will go to the home of we choose Okot tomorrow. We shall go in the garden of Okot. The wife cook for us the food and we also dig. That is the meaning of Oya. When we harvest, we sell it within in our small markets. And the main market here is in Yumbe town. We also do take it there. We don't have a market linkages. But besides whatever we are digging here, when we harvested it, we keep it in the room, we eat it. Maybe we do exchange of goods to goods. Somebody's having simsim, I have a sorghum. I gave you sorghum, you give me the simsim. We eat it.
Refugees in Uganda have a similar access to healthcare and education as Ugandan nationals, and are allocated a small piece of land to settle on, build a home, and grow crops. Rabita is a term loosely translated as association, to build togetherness. It reinforces a sense of communality as it is accompanied by meals, drinks, and merrymaking. The property recovery scheme has been one of the most successful of the many civic humanitarian initiatives taking place in Bidibidi refugee settlement.
Each and every woman in the settlement, they have what to do. And they build now zero trust in NGOs. Because they say, you call me for meeting, after some time the meeting does not bear fruits on me. But this, our PRE, the Property Recovering Empowerment Group, is daily. As I talk right now, my neighborhood, they also have theirs. Right now they are preparing, and time to come they will start gathering. So this is a way when you have a time to go and give maybe some counseling, you have a time for passing information. All leaders, we join with them and we pass information. It has also improved us, the women, the hygiene at home, at least because visitors can't come to your home, you don't have a latrine, you don't have a bathroom. And what we do is to bring those traumatized women.
Her ultimate goal is to empower women and help them transform their lives for the better. It is through her active involvement that she has and continues to successfully mobilize fellow women to build their own resilience in the absence of aid or external support. Through Rabita, refugees not only help each other materially, they also support each other emotionally and psychologically. It involves saving by community members that are used to recover lost property during their flight from homes and wars back in South Sudan. The women first elect members and establish a leader. Thereafter, the group members agree on the amount of money to be contributed at each round of the give-out period. The order of members who would receive the property or cash is determined by a raffle. Give-out periods and events can be after a fortnight or monthly. After a visitation at home of the one receiving, the leadership or members then purchase the items that they deem important or necessary for the household to be handed over during the give-out event. Such items could be flasks, mattresses, corrugated iron sheets, bed sheets, or even money to cover school fees and other needs. On the cash-out date, often held on a weekend, the host organizes a handover ceremony with dancing and serving of food and drinks.
In 2016, they gave us things once and not recovered again. Not because they can't do it, but management. The population is too big. We said, as a mother, what should we do? We come up with this group, bit by bit, started with 500. we do social network. And among ourselves, refugees, we don't have love among ourselves. We fight at the water point, we fight at the distribution centers, we fight at the facility. We say, what is the root cause? So today, we come up with this initiative saying that, why can't we support ourselves? We build by ourselves. Beside all, we also have a men group. We are having a Boda team. We are having a Share group. We are having a Salam Sala team. We have a lot of men. They support us by supporting other things. They do for us the tapling shelters. They put for us the stones where women cannot do in any other way. And we support. We also support these youths.
Local and national humanitarian agencies have already demonstrated their leadership abilities during emergencies and protracted displacement in several contexts. During emergency response, their efforts are often overlooked by bigger institutions and organizations that offer humanitarian responses. However, how refugees help each other in these ways do not get much attention in humanitarian debates.
So how do we make these policy changes? How do we make the alignment? As a refugee, of course, there are privileges to being a refugee in Uganda. You have the right to movement, which I can say is 100%. You can move from north to south without being asked for documentation. But is that enough for the human need?
I think that's one of the privileges that we get from the Refugee Act. You said it very well that we have freedom to associate. So in Uganda, there is that freedom of association, there is a freedom of movement, and that's why we have very many refugee-led groups. We have about 500, I think over 500 refugee-led groups that are registered and those that are not registered. You cannot find them in another country.
Local and national groups working on the front lines of emergencies possess invaluable knowledge of local languages, culture, geography, and political realities. They understand the local needs and can act swiftly to provide the required assistance. Not just in terms of distributing or facilitating aid, they can also link mainstream humanitarian aid to socio-cultural practices and refugee-led initiatives.
We acknowledge that the support that UNHCR and other implementing partners are giving is very, very insufficient, let alone even supporting their livelihoods. But we also understand that through these struggles, refugees continue to move on. So the research that we undertake is trying to document social activities that you engage in, cultural activities that you engage in. We hope that through these activities, we can put these activities on the spotlight.
During COVID-19, some international organizations left their operations. They said the staff were too scared to get COVID, and others wanted to be with their families at that dark moment. So who were the refugees left with? They were left by themselves. So assume there were no refugee-led organizations. What would have happened?
Local community actors are the first responders whenever a disaster strikes. They have a deep understanding of the context and the needs of the communities with insights, information, knowledge, and know-how that are likely to contribute to a more appropriate, effective, and efficient emergency response. To understand and support such initiatives is key.
I found that during COVID we had a lot of challenges, and our fellow brothers and sisters, they had a lot of challenges in their hostels, in their places of staying, their rooms. There were challenges that I found that it's very important for me to have hands in supporting, at least individually, where necessary. Where I find tears, I put in help. So the help were in a very number of ways, financially, visiting people in their various hostels, meeting youth, meeting young people, discussing to them. We try our best to reach out to them, at least with a little of support that we got in through lobbying. We lobby from various individuals within the country, outside the country. You try your best to see at least how someone can help.
Zaza is an individual with refugee status residing in the urban center of Kampala. He is highly skilled in several areas, yet he encounters significant obstacles when attempting to utilize his abilities in complex environment of the city. Despite these challenges, he has devoted himself to guiding other refugees in recognizing their strengths, nurturing their talents, and exploiting their attributes to create opportunities for themselves.
On my being here in Kampala since 2018, I was one of refugees from rural refugees area in Buyali. So I stayed there for some few years, 2 years, and then I got opportunity to cross back to this city of urban refugees.
In his capacity as a student leader, Zaza has worked tirelessly to empower other refugee students facing multiple obstacles while pursuing their academic studies. His passion for football has enabled him to form connections with urban refugees from various parts of the African continent, resulting in the promoting of social development and inclusion through the sport.
Football has really educated us. It has brought us together. You find today we have known very many others outside there. People cannot see you today in a pain and say, no, cannot help you. No, but football has done a lot. Football is improving people's welfare. It is helping others. People have a challenge. You find someone that I didn't know, but I can help because I know he has talent. He's a good person. He plays football. He's in my team. If he has issues, why can I not help? I have to help. We have been really in together. You try to learn fellow brothers. You learn different tribe from from the camp. You find Congolese. You find the Sudan, different Ethiopians, Kenyans. So you have different people that you learn from each other.
Mental health issues are widespread in both the Kampala urban center and settlement areas, and the power of football has proven to be an effective tool in mitigating the negative impacts of these challenges.
You know, as a youth, as a young person, you have a lot of challenges that you are facing when you are in a youth age. Sometimes we might have a loss of families. We have a player that have lost the mother, lost the father. We have very many that they have gone through this kind of challenges. So it become a hard time for us always in the club. You need to have some contributions to support. At least you put hand in. You support the funeral. You go, you visit it, the family. As a team, you go and visit the family. You have overnight, maybe at the place, maybe at the hostel. So you come back. This one always comes through the contribution of each and everyone. But football is an amazing thing because it brings people together. It makes you to avoid hurting each other. It makes you to learn that this is a human being, this is your brother. You shouldn't bring problems between yourself. You need to commit yourself for each other. When someone's make a mistake, don't blame much, because tomorrow you make another mistakes. That's the way football is.
Let's not get excited about the beautiful policies that we hear. Let's not get excited about the greens that we see. Let's get to the community and ask them what is happening. So when it comes to localization, we have a lot of gaps. but I am glad to say that refugee-led organizations have stepped up to fill those gaps.
And if you look at the comprehensive refugee response framework in Uganda, and you compare to other countries, you say that Uganda is the best. It's really the best. And of course, there are quite some issues with implementation of these policies that we're talking about. And that's the reason why we are seeing the rising of refugee-led organizations.
All right, this is just a starting point of a discussion, and I'm very excited that we have two excellent panelists here, one of whom you've already seen, to address some of the questions that are raised in the film and go beyond. So Agu Kuol is a South Sudanese activist and refugee leader featured in the documentary. He's a former leader of RELON, the refugee-led organization network, and now also a student at NTNU. He brings first-hand experience of refugee-led initiatives supporting displaced communities. And then Anne Modoni Wagimu has extensive experience in participatory grant-making and innovative funding. She co-designed the Kagibu Foundation's grant-making pilot and has worked extensively on funding models that place local and refugee-led actors at the center. So I would like to invite both of you to come up here. Thank you. Maybe you sit in the middle. Okay. Maybe I don't want to make an emergency call. All right, welcome. And I'm sure you've seen the movie at least once before, but I wanted to start by asking both of you to reflect a little bit on the film. Is there anything you want to highlight? And then at the same time, could you also bring in something about how it relates to your own work or your own experience with locally led initiatives, refugee-led initiatives? So who would like to start?
I can. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the beautiful introduction, Cindy. One thing that was not mentioned about me is my lived experience. I don't know if that was mentioned enough, but I'll say it. Kuol Aro Kuol is my name. I am a refugee from South Sudan, and I was actually displaced before I was born. That means I was born in an IDP in 1992. Many of you must have heard of the long war in Sudan. And that was probably the hardest time. There was the famine in Sudan. Many of you who know the story will know this. I will not go long into that. But I also tested the bitterness of the war. I was forced to carry a gun at the age of 12. I don't know how I got here, so maybe by God's grace. But also more about the works that you've seen, localization. I believe I'm here because so many people, not the NGOs alone. I know NGOs really did a lot of work, but because our neighbors became our heroes, they had things to offer at the moment when there was nothing to offer. And that is why I'm so passionate about the work of localization. So when we were displaced again in 2013, I became a refugee in Uganda. I have a 4-year-old daughter who is also a refugee. It is like being a refugee is tied on my back, but it is what it is, right? So I'm a refugee in Uganda, And I've been working with the refugee-led organization, part of the partners that are mentioned there, and doing more work into localization and promoting the work of refugee-led organizations and other local actors. That has been long. I will allow my sister here to introduce herself.
All right, yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Anne Muthoni, like I've been introduced by Cindy. And I think having watched the film for the third time right now, it has made me reflect on the aspect of co-creation. And co-creation in relation to what one of the participants in the film was talking about. They said if localization is to be actualized or realized in its entirety, then the local actors have to be engaged all the way from the designing phase to the implementation of humanitarian programs. And it made me reflect on the work that I've done in the past as a person who's also worked with international non-governmental organizations in providing different forms of support to refugees and asylum seekers living in the urban areas of Kenya. And I was particularly offering mental health and psychosocial support. And reflecting back on the work that we were doing as a staff of an international organization, I remember we were working with refugee-led organization leaders, and we were trying to build their capacities around providing psychosocial, psychological first aid, rather. And we would organize for workshops and try to mobilize these leaders to attend the workshops. And as I was reflecting on this, I realized that we were actually engaging them at the point of delivery of our activities. So we were never engaging them at the point when we were designing these activities. We were not engaging them at the point when we were doing the fundraising, the grant writing proposals. And it also occurred to me that we hardly even conducted any capacity needs assessments to actually understand how do the refugee-led organizations actually provide psychological first aid to the communities that they serve, so that then we identify the gaps together and see what else we need to bring on board as additional support. And so I think these sort of questions point towards something that's quite clear, which is institutional barriers that exist within the international and governmental organizations, and institutional barriers in relation to the governance of the work that we do, barriers around the operations and the humanitarian programming as well. And that got me thinking that the humanitarian systems, therefore, have something to learn from what is happening in the philanthropy landscape. And this relates closely to the work that I've done with Karibu Foundation, which is around participatory grant making. So in the humanitarian context, we are talking about localization, but also the funders are trying to ask themselves, how can we also localize our grant making processes? And what that looks like in philanthropy is them trying new models called participatory grant making, which is exactly what Karibu Foundation has been trying to implement since 2021. And the reason why I'm saying the humanitarian systems would have something to learn from the philanthropy sector as at now is because for Karibu, for example, which is one of the private funders, because maybe I should have said this, these new models that are being experimented within the philanthropy landscape are majorly being experimented by private funders and not necessarily those in the public financing. And so Karibu is a very good example of that. And so what Karibu did with its participatory grant-making model, it wanted to support social change causes within the sub-Saharan context, but then they realized that they wanted to give away power as they did this. And so what they did is they identified representatives like myself in sub-Saharan Africa, and they came to us and said, look, these are the resources that we have. We are not based in sub-Saharan Africa, so we don't know what your priority areas or your priority pain points are. Can you just come together, discuss, have a consensus on what are the priority areas that you want to support, and make decisions on who gets this money, how do they get the money, where does the money go, And so that sort of flexibility allowed us to co-create solutions that are very relevant for sub-Saharan Africa. Now, that's not the case when it comes to the humanitarian architecture. Because of the institutional barriers that I just mentioned, and also being very risk-averse, we lack the opportunity and the capability to allow ourselves to co-create with the local actors. And so I was thinking to myself that, these are some of the things that the humanitarian systems might want to learn, and how that can happen is for them to think about the whole idea of having country offices with the international and governmental organizations. I think it's for them, the initial idea must have been for them to bring their actions or their solutions or their support closer to the community. But then one of the challenges that we have at the international organizations level is that we want to have a universal way of working. So if, for example, we are offering mental health and psychosocial support programming, we want it to look the same across all of the country offices. And even with the country offices themselves, we want to still continue controlling them from the headquarter offices. And so they lack the full autonomy to even be able to co-create with the local actors. Because something as simple as a country office being able to go to the local actors and saying, hey, we have these resources, we want to come and program around this thematic area. What are some of the strengths that you have in relation to this programming area that we want to work on? So what are the strengths of each stakeholder? What are the gaps? And how can we work together towards a solution that's more relevant to both parties?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I have to stop you there because this is already material for like hours and hours. There's so many fascinating things you said. I wanted to ask first of all, your reflections on what Anne was saying, and also maybe this idea of co-creation that everyone also talks about, like what would that look like for you? But just, yeah, any reflections you have based on everything that was said here.
Well, yeah, the whole notion of co-creation has been our point of discussion, but it has not been realized because there are so many organizations and individuals who define co-creation in their different ways. They will call co-creation having a representative like myself from Uganda involved in a meeting, and they call that a co-creation. That is not what co-creation is. Co-creation is sitting together from the initial idea point and bringing it to the community, because I don't fully represent the community. The community has a person with disability, it has women, it has children. So these people, I don't represent them fully. But the only way to meaningfully co-create is to have them involved in one way or another, come to the community. And that's why I have been a fierce advocate of local initiatives. Because if I were a donor, why would I give money to a leader, an organization whose leader takes a business class flight to go and see the refugees? Why, even if the organization on ground is so corrupt, I would rather give the money to that corrupt organization whose leader is living in those dusty camps. So the whole thing about co-creation and localization is more about understanding that there is none of these organizations that we work with that is 100% transparent. If you think refugee-led organizations or local actors are not accountable, maybe we need to redefine accountability. Maybe accountability is defined in our own, I'm sorry to say, Western words. I'm sorry, I don't have sugar to put to my words. I say them the way they are. So accountability has to be defined, and at some point I will be critical about the way some organizations behave, especially international ones. The whole thing that has held us so much as local actors has been this point of accountability. And I think we need to have a huge conversation with the donors. And first of all, localization is not only about organizations. It's also about people who look after their neighbors. It's about when I don't have what to eat tonight, I don't wait for UNHCR to distribute food. World Food Program to bring food. I can give you what to eat. You can give me what to eat. That is localization. And this has been taken away from people's mind because us, in these parts of the world, and including myself, have made, we have made humanitarianism sound like a foreign concept. If we can talk to people to make them understand that if you give someone what they are missing tonight, that is humanitarianism. And it must not come on a plane, it must not come on a branded car, it must not come on as money. It comes in so many different ways. So if there is little time, I would like a picture displayed to show, I don't know if our IT is ready to show a picture of a woman, a picture that inspired me so much. And it came at a time, right. So this picture has so much to do with part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is a South Sudanese woman in the refugee settlement where my mom is currently. It's called Ailowan Refugee Settlement in Ajumani district. This was during COVID-19. And I was sitting somewhere, like, just being myself. And I saw this woman carrying something, and she's our neighbor. I did not know that her little daughter was sick overnight, and she was taken to the hospital, and she couldn't get anti-malarial or malarial treatment, and so the baby passed. And that was during COVID-19. And it was she had the lifeless body of her baby for over 4 hours, and there was nobody coming to attend to her or telling her what to do. Like the hospitals people in the hospital were scared about COVID, so nobody really cared about. And I saw her carrying this lifeless body of her baby, taking it home. And I approached her, I was like, what's happening? And she said, the baby passed and there was nobody to help. This was really sad. And this was at the moment when the humanitarian system that believes has the power to help could not show up. This is when organizations left because people were scared of, like I mentioned in the video earlier, they were scared of COVID and all that. So this is one of the pictures that inspired me to doing what I'm doing, because what we did thereafter is what I understand as a real humanitarianism. I have other pictures participating in burying our people, and we didn't even have instructions from anyone on how to safely bury people who died from maybe COVID. We didn't know what they died from, but we had to do that. So localization should be redefined. That's the bottom line. We should redefine it and redefine it together with local actors who are doing the real work. I don't mean to say international actors are not doing work, but we need to evaluate the work that we are doing, whether it's really helping or it's not. Thank you.
I think listening to both of you, the two questions that come up for me is like, what if, because you're saying it's about neighbors sharing food, what if those neighbors also don't have food to share? And then the other thing is also, what is if those neighbors, or like within the community, have just come out of a war and were maybe fighting on different sides? Or also to kind of look at how, let's go a little bit deeper in this kind of local engagement. How does that happen, and where does it also fail? Where is it not possible? I'm trying to see whether we can move towards understanding what is the role of the local, whether it's a neighbor or it's a church or the mosque, and what could also maybe be the role of international community. I know both of you sound like you're not sugaring your words, but I assume that you're not saying that, okay, so just leave us be.
Right. I mean, but I mean, we need each other. We need international organizations. I hope I'm not sounding like we don't need international organizations. We need them, but we need to look at the way we are partnering. We need to know how people, how do people weave? How do people support each other on ground? We don't need to behave like we are the heroes or heroines. We need to behave like these people already had the ways they were coping, they already had the way they were supporting each other. For example, in the video that we have seen people dancing. They were dancing and laughing and playing as if there was nothing wrong. And many of them will go home to empty houses that had no food. But that short time of dancing and jubilation and smiling and creating hope is really important. And that is what the localization helps with. When you have people coming around you to tell you, okay, it's all right, things are hard, but it's going to be okay. And you mentioned something very important, like when they don't have anything to offer. How do you give your neighbor something when you don't have something to offer? Now, how it works is that there is no single point in life where everybody is 100% leveled. Mm-hmm. There are people who are advantaged in one way or another. And for the life of South Sudanese who live communally, we are very communal people, and the Sudanese and Somalis. There are people who are lucky to have their relatives in Norway, for example, in the US, in Australia, who send them remittances every month. And these are the remittances that I shared. I have benefited from remittances that I sent by someone who is not my relative, who is not my close relative, but I get to benefit from this. So, to conclude, we need everybody. We need all the actors. We need individuals to support. But we need to look at the way we are supporting each other. We need to also give more power to the local actors, those organizations that are living in that context, that wake up and see the realities. It's not only important in terms of just mere support, but it is important in terms of accountability, because it is easy for the community to hold these organizations accountable when they are within the community. One day, someone asked me an intriguing question, and it may sound like criticism again. He said, one of the leaders, he said, "Do you know who this person called Geneva is? Who is Geneva?" And I said, "I don't know a person called Geneva. The Geneva I know is a place." And he said, "No, I thought Geneva was a person. Maybe someone who is in a higher hierarchy than the commissioner for UNHCR. Because everything we ask for is referred to Geneva. And Geneva does not come back to us." You see? So, that what he was insinuating, if that is the English word, is that it is easier to share something or to ask for something that is with the organization on ground so that they get an immediate feedback than something that is referred to 1,000 miles away. So I have talked a lot, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of the things that Cole has mentioned, particularly about needing every other stakeholder in the sector. So in as much as I've pointed towards the challenges with the international and governmental organization, I also acknowledge I'm not of the school of thought that we should take off the international and governmental organizations off the table. I don't think that would be strategic. Yes, they fail in some ways, but they also have impacted communities in great ways. And, when we think about the funding that goes towards humanitarian action, much of it has actually been coming from public financing, yeah? In as much as there's private funding also coming in, the scale of private funding wouldn't ideally match how much public funding has been fueling humanitarian action. And for that very reason, with public funding comes very complex compliance and regulatory requirements that then demand for the heavy financial accountability and all of these things that the local actors would find very burdensome. And the same requirements demand for a certain set of infrastructure that has been, for a long time, been established within these international and governmental organizations and the UN agencies, and hence the reason why they are more appealing to work with, particularly for the governments. And so if we are talking about localization now, and we want to continue responding to the polycrisis now, which is actually very in much demand at this moment, considering all of the humanitarian needs that we need to address at this point, then we need to remember that there is a polycrisis, yes. We want to give as much power and resources as possible to the local organizations to respond, yes. But then, much of the funding that we want to access demands that we have a certain set of infrastructure that doesn't exist amongst the local actors. So what do? Do we sit and wait until when, for example, the public philanthropists would think about easing their financial reporting systems? No, we need to continue offering humanitarian assistance. So what then would be the role of international and governmental organizations? Could there be a possibility where they think about, can we become partners with the local actors and say, okay, let's give the local organization, the country offices, enough autonomy for them to collaborate with local actors. And because we are still demanded to provide these heavy financial reports, so as the international and governmental organizations, we are going to take on that burden, but at the same time, we are going to ensure that we co-create these grant proposals together with the local actors and ensure that we are able to channel as much resources to them, and we are able to build their capacities and enable them to be at the front line with all of the resources and capacities that they need to respond to these crisis that we want to respond to. So the role of international and governmental organizations should be about how do we lift off the burden that the systems we work within require of us to do, and how can we also create a lot of flexibility that allows for us to give as much power as we can to the local actors. And so for me, this is how I see the role of international and governmental organizations actually playing out. So it's not a question of who leaves the table, but how do we shift our roles to a way that is more enabling to the realization of localization.
Thanks. I'm sure there are lots of opinions about this also in the audience, and I want to leave time for questions. So I think this is a very good moment to invite first Stina Renate Hårheim to say a few things. She's a State Secretary to Norway's Minister of International Development, Åsmund Aukrust, who introduced Project Turning Point. Stina Renate, the floor is yours. And then afterwards we'll have time for some questions further.
Oh, that was a bright light. Have you seen that the whole time? Okay, yes. Excellent. Okay. First of all, thank you to PRIO, the Caribou Foundation, and the Norwegian Council for Africa for bringing us here together. And thank you so much for the discussion. I had a reflection hearing you and watching the movie. When we speak about refugees in a national context in Norway, they often are portrayed as victims. But what we've seen here, and I also experienced this myself many times, refugees they have a lot of engagement, they have a lot of power, agency, knowledge, creativity, solidarity, and also I saw a lot of good, how do you say, humor, or being able to laugh and dance, even in extreme conditions around the globe. And I just landed this morning from New York at the UN conference, and it's interesting speaking about the UN, right? But we had debates now because of the polycrisis. How is the world kind of stepping up to deliver on the platform of Sevilla, which the world agreed on 9 months ago, on how to finance development? And a lot of the countries from the global south, they were talking about country ownership, because a lot of the development aid, but also the humanitarian aid, has been driven by donor priorities. So I think that's true for development. I think community ownership is highly important when we talk about the humanitarian field, because it's obvious that those closest to the challenges are also the closest to the solutions. And with the polar crisis going on in the world, we still have the effects of the Russian aggression against Ukraine, but we also now have a war on Middle East that will have very wide ramification, and I think it will last for a long time. And at the same time, as the needs are growing, the ODA is going down. So there is a lot of challenges. So this is why we think that our development policy and also our humanitarian policy needs to adapt to the new realities. Our ambition is, of course, not to do less, but to do it even better. And I think we must, when the ODA is going down, the resources are getting down, we must do it more effectively. So this is why the minister has launched the project to reassess and adopt our policy. We will use this whole year to kind of debate, and we are trying not to use project Turning Point because it's had very bad annotations to some people in the US, but who we will not be in the same boat as. And I think a key part of what we are doing this year is to actually listening. We don't have all the answers. And I think that's part of the point, to actually listen and to have different voices kind of inform our policy process. And we have a lot of debate here in Norway, of course, but I believe it's essential to listen to the people that stands closest to the challenges. So I had a manuscript, but I have taken so many notes, but I will try to come with some reflections on how we see it. So I think it's needed now for a much larger shift in the international system, with local actors, including refugee-led organizations, to play a stronger role. And not only as the implementators, as you said, they have to be co-creators. They have to define, design, and implement. As the film quite clearly showed, and as you also had told us, there are those affected who know what the needs are. If that's safety, if it's education, or if it's health, or women groups, or playing football to kind of cope with mental health issues. Also in the humanitarian reset, which is kind of the reform of the humanitarian field, locally led response is part of the solution. I have taken notes. And, okay, this is an important point that was also made in the video, because the locally led organizations, they are the first responders when crisis hit, and they don't leave. When everybody else, when the international community leaves, they are the last man and women standing. And we saw it at the example from COVID. So this is important, but they also know the context. They are able to shift quickly, so they are more adaptable. And I really like your point about we are not talking about somebody to leave the table, but we are kind of talking about shifting the roles at the table. And I think when the funding is now going down, I am a bit concerned, because I think a lot of international organizations, they will kind of try to survive. And I think it will need a lot of political will to actually make them turn over not only money, but also power. And I think a part of the issue is that a lot of the international organizations, as you said, they are run by Geneva or New York. And a lot of the organizations, they have to answer to their boards. And they are completely on the other side of the world. So we believe, when talking about the UN, there's a big reform process. And in the development field, and also the humanitarian, I think we need stronger coordination of the UN system on country level. Less organizations, less people, more effective and more grounded, and actually doing what the community or what the country needs, not what the boards always tell them. And as a donor, we are of course a part of those boards, so we also have a job to do when it comes to that, and that's a part of the whole UN 80 reform process, which we are highly engaged in. And so I think the international systems is needed also for humanitarian diplomacy to keep up, to protect the normative humanitarian principles and humanitarian rights. So I think the international system is needed, but I think it could be shrinked and working a bit different. But yeah, it's a process. But as you also pointed on some dilemmas, and I think one dilemma here, which is kind of getting bigger also in Norway, is that support for humanitarian work, development aid, cannot be taken for granted. We see an increased pressure and more critical questions on where are the taxpayers' money going. And so we need to have some kind of compliance reporting, but I think your perspective is excellent, because then you can have these international NGOs, international organization, or you could also have, which we are trying also to see how we can support, more kind of umbrella organization rooted in the global south as well, or in the African continent, to kind of do that job. So this is one thing we are kind of wanting to go further into. But accountability cannot only go down, it also must go up. And I think the most important thing is that the people we serve, that the help comes where it's most needed. And I think also you have an important role in keeping us accountable for our promises and the outcomes that we are co-creating. Yeah, so, and many of the things we have talked today, we have talked about for years, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the circumstances right now, they are forcing us to do something. And it's a lot of people say, never waste a good crisis. We should not do that. I think this is also an opportunity to kind of do what we have to walk the talk, if you want. No, to talk, you walk the talk, yeah. And I think that could also make the humanitarian systems much more stronger, much more relevant, and just and lasting. So, thank you. This was a bit messy, but I was very inspired by this. So I'm trying to go off my manuscript and talk about what you talked about. But so thank you, both for your knowledge, expertise, and for your bravery, and for a very strong history. It's inspiring to listen to you, and we take this. I will take this back to the office, and also. This is also stuff we are talking about, so I think we are quite aligned. I think maybe the hardest part is making this happen, because Norway doesn't control this alone, so we need a lot of international cooperation and other donors to kind of get with this thinking. Yeah, so thank you so much, and thank you for, in such a very clear way, making the message also here in Oslo. We need to hear it, and I believe a lot more people also outside the room need to hear it, but I think everyone will bring it to our respective communities and organizations, and I hope this really paves the way forward. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So we have about 25 minutes for questions, and like I said, please make sure that the conversation is also continued afterwards. I actually wanted to say 2 sentences to prevent that everyone working for an NGO who's not a finance controller will raise issues about other roles that they have, because I do think there is also this question of, okay, so what is the role of international organizations that can also be seen as very reductive, like if you're only talking about the finances of it, and that's the role. I wanted to say something about community that comes up here, and I want to say something about the role of civil society. So one of the things that I think the film does that is really important is really to show it's not this instrumental survival, etc. It's about community building. And of course, we're talking a lot about like social resilience and what that means and how do you combine humanitarian aid with development, etc. It's really about community building, and that also really links very strongly with the role of civil society, which I think more than ever we need in this day and age. So I think with that, I'll open the floor. Please, we'll take a few questions at the same time, and please also briefly state who you are, where you come from. And the microphone is there, so we have 1, 2, and then 3 to start with.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mathieu. I work for Save the Children. I have a couple of questions. The first one is if you could share a few examples of success or failure of this participatory grant development. On the second one, given the importance of the role of diaspora that you mentioned, are you also exploring mechanisms around diaspora grant making?
Thank you. My name is Arne Severas, working from Norwegian Church Aid. I have 2 questions. First of all, thank you so much for a very strong message that came across, not the least because of your personal experiences and lived lives. First question to you, Paul. I work for Norwegian Church Aid. You may know this organization or any other organization. Well. And we work on a scale when it comes to local leadership and community-based engagement. Successful here, but failing very much in other places. If you were to advise an organization like us and others, how would you like us to come forth to be a stronger part of your co-creation and provide more ownership to you guys for what you do in the community-led organizations? The second question is to Stine, and maybe to all of you. It's linked to a current process that is also going on, the HDP, Humanitarian Development and Peace Nexus approach, which also comes in with a strong element of local leadership, community ownership, community participation. How do you, and maybe more to the Norwegian government, see this approach as a useful entry point also in the discussion of local leadership and local ownership of programs? Thank you.
There was one on that side.
Hi, thank you so much for the mic. Thank you for sharing your very vulnerable moment with us, the picture. It made me so emotional, and it doesn't only knock on us as whoever we are here, but as a human, how sad it could get, how difficult it could get, and what we really are talking about when it comes to humanitarian work and development work, and how far it's like, how deep it is. Like, thank you for that reminder for all of us here. I just have a question, like a big shout out to the Caribou Foundation. They are doing an extraordinary job. But when you were explaining that the way, you were questioning the way that international organizations are doing, it was right away, as based on my understanding, understood as, okay, should we go and leave it to you? Or it was understood like, you don't want international organization, something like this. So how do you come with this? Like, how do you cope with this, that we don't want you to go away and leave us alone, but we just questions or we just contribute to the way that organizations are working, international organizations? Like, where do you find the way that nobody gets annoyed, and yet there could be a solution to that? Thank you.
maybe answer those three, and yeah, just pick what you would like to focus on. Do you want to start, Anne?
Yeah, I think to the person who asked the first couple of questions, I might request you to repeat the questions because I only got the question on the successes and failures of participatory grant making, but maybe I could first respond to that. So the success, I would say the success of that participatory grant making model was that for the first time, Karibu, for example, as a funder, was able to shift so much of their decision-making power to the people that they were supporting. So that was like one of the biggest success within the whole process. And so now they were allowing the people that they support to be making decisions over their own needs, you know? And so then they were supporting solutions that are very relevant to the needs within those contexts. And so majorly being given that power to make decisions was the biggest success. And also letting in the people that they support to this at the end to see how funders usually do their grant-making processes, and for us to be able to question and raise so many concerns about how participatory, how philanthropy or grant-making has been happening in the past. But when it comes to the failures, just like in the humanitarian context, where people ask, when we're doing capacity building activities, are we trying to create mini international and governmental organizations, whereas we are talking about localization? So the same questions arise in participatory grant making. Are we trying to create mini grant makers? Because you realize, just like Kwal said before, he's not a representative of the whole refugee community. So even us, as the representatives within sub-Saharan region, we only represent a very small percentage of the entire region, you know? We're only coming with very limited perspectives, even to the very needs that we want to respond to. So then we got to points where we even asked ourselves, yes, Karibu is giving away power, but even as they give away the power, they've given them to just a handful of individuals that are not a full representative of the region that they want to support. So those are some of the questions that we kept struggling with, and we keep struggling with, and I think there are questions that the sector is still struggling with, because as they try to explore even better ways of participatory grant making. So in terms of failures, that's one of the failures at the process level. But even when it comes to being able to give out grants, because at first we wanted to support social movements, but then we also realized that we didn't know what social movements were. We didn't have a consensus on what that was. But I guess that's the beauty of it, because then we realized we are working in different, we want to support different contexts that operate in different ways, and so there's no one way that social movements would actually exist in all of these contexts. So the failure of that was how then are we able to support social movements at the same time while appreciating the uniqueness of all of these contexts? And I would say, in as much as that was a failure, trying to figure that out, the success of that was we realized that social movements do not work in a vacuum. They are part of an ecosystem, and so our consensus was that, can we support the entire ecosystem? So can we support a mix of social movements? Can we support also registered organizations that support the existence or create enabling environments for these social movements? So those are some of the successes and failures that we got to experience through the process.
I just want to say that's like the Norwegian model. I'm from the Netherlands, so I'm not sure, but this kind of supporting of all these different actors, to me, is a bit what the Norwegian model is about. And now Norwegians can disagree with me if this is not true. But yeah,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. I will quickly respond to questions from NCA. Of course, I know NCA, and I know a few colleagues in South Sudan who work for NCA doing really great. And so the question of how do you want us to come forward, like what do you want us to do, is a very important question. And I hope all the organizations that are here should ask that same question. I hope you've asked on behalf of everyone. how do you come forward? First of all, NCA has been existing for years. And so they have built systems and accountability systems, how to manage finances and all that. And that is the hurdle that we find as local actors. Sometimes we are told you don't have systems for financial management, you don't have capacity. And sometimes we do question also what these capacities are, because if you are questioning my capacity, I should also question your capacity. You're not from here. So I also have my capacities that you don't have. But the thing is, we all need financial management. We need to manage the resources. By saying that we are better placed doesn't give us the liberty to mess with the resources, the taxpayers' money that come from compassion. So how do you come forward? Is to build local actors' capacity, identify local actors that you can meaningfully partner with, build their capacities, and if you're going to face down on your work, you do that very slowly, knowing that you have confidence in capacities that you have built. I would not expect NCA to be in a certain location for 20 years. But I would expect the work of NCA to continue in that location 20 years after they have left. And by those capacities that you have built is what we are talking about. Many organizations are already doing it, which is really good. And I hope that answers your question. The second one, I don't know if I captured it well, but I think it was about working with local leadership. If you don't mind, maybe, okay. Working with local leadership. See, when this localization discussion came to the floor, many actors felt threatened. Many organizations needed to survive, of course, with the traditional system. And so some ended up giving leadership, maybe the management of organization at the field level, to local people and call it a local organization. But that's not what it is. If it is a meaningful one, you train the leaders in the community, you train them to carry on with the work. And you keep supporting them from a distance. And let everything that is being implemented, I know there is a studied expertise, but then there is a lived expertise. Mix these two kind of expertise and build a strong leadership based on these two. I hope that that answers you. And then the last, I'm so sorry I didn't capture your name or the organization, but yeah, again, I want to mention again that we really need international organizations. And I'm sorry if I sound like we do not need them. We need them. And I will say this 100 times. But we need to have a meaningful partnership. Not this kind of partnership where you have the international organization like taking everything and having the admin cost and all that, and then you are given peanut to go and budget and work with the communities at the community level. It doesn't work. We need to have an equal partnership, a partnership where I'm also a decision maker. As much as you make decisions, we should make, how do you call it? We should make unified decisions that we have discussed, that we have agreed on, that we have taken to the community, that we are confident will help the community. We have seen some decisions that have been made, and the projects that have taken in a lot of money, and they are non-existent, and the community becomes even more vulnerable than when the project came in. So I hope, again, this answers you. Thank you.
We have room for one more round, so maybe, again, start on this side. It's difficult to see, but 1, 2, 3, and then 4.
Thank you. My name is Francis. I'm a student at Oslo Met and also a volunteer with Norwegian Council for Africa. My question is, I hear a call for kind of the local organization being independent, and yeah, but my question is, how then are they going to be held accountable? Who are they going to be accountable to? Because one of the problems I come from Kenya, problems we have maybe in Africa is maybe corruption and bureaucracy. So who is going to, how are going to account, and who are they going to be accountable for?
Thank you. My name is Hisham. I'm representing Sudanese human rights activists and support group for Sudan and South Sudan. My question is for both the speakers, as donor and as a beneficiary. What is the importance of the word or the term visualization for you?
Sorry?
Visualization.
Visualization.
Okay. If you remember in the film, the woman who was dancing was wearing a T-shirt, and there was a flag of Canada on that T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important for the donor that the beneficiaries know that this is coming from that donor. So how it is important for you also as a beneficiary. The second part is I'd like to say that it's really difficult for the donor to understand what is needed and what is happening on the grassroots. So I've been here in Norway for so long, and I've been trying for so hard to get some assistance to the Sudanese organizations working in Sudan. But the level of understanding is different. How can I put that? For example, when we talk about the grassroots organizations, the local community-based organizations, CBOs, they don't have anything which is called admin cost. They don't have salaries. All the money that they receive goes directly to where it should go. But when you go one level up, which is the local organizations, they need office, admin cost, vehicles, and this other stuff. So I think that it's way better for the donors to go directly to the grassroots organizations to get most of the funds or for the donor.
Thank you. There was someone in the back, yeah.
Hi, thank you all so much. It was super interesting. My name is Sarah Lisa. I work at NORAD, so I hope I'm allowed to ask a question. I don't know if I am. My question is around, you were mentioning accountability systems, and financial management. What we hear a lot about, and even more recently, is around results. So we need to show that aid matters, right? To get the population to agree to keep spending the money, to make sure that we're investing and giving money where it's most needed. And my fear is that sometimes this focus on results can make you want to have like a lot of control as a donor, right? Or as a UN organization, setting sort of strict results frameworks where you say this much is going to be done and in this kind of way. And that maybe takes away some of the flexibility and the ability to do those things and measure those things that actually matter most. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice or any tips or any ideas around how local organizations can showcase results and how we as donors can better pay attention to what matters. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks. And then there was one more question there. On this side.
Oh, yeah.
Two more questions there, and then we have to close.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my name is Araba. I'm a student, and I just have a question regarding what is happening on the ground, because I know that food categorization is a new thing. So I was just wondering, will that be the future of aid, that we're going to categorize refugees? So yeah, I was just asking about like the structure, the future structure.
Thank you very much. My name is Titus Tenga, and I come from Strome Foundation. I don't have any question to the panelists. If anything to say, keep it up and shout even more louder. Thank you so much. And I'm saying that because I've also been working with Karibu as a board chair before, so I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So thank you very much. That is a dignified funding model of development. I'm stopping there.
Okay.
I just have a comment, maybe a comment, I think, and then very brief. I'll make it very brief. I think the whole localization is very much being thought about from the fact that it is something for implementation. But I think it goes even beyond that. To me, localization scientifically is grounded on the fact that a human being, an individual, cannot be developed by another person. Human beings develop themselves. So their involvement in the process of their own development, in the design, in the planning, in the implementation, and even in the monitoring is critically important. So I look at localization and even development from that point of view in the humanitarian. A very brief question. It was very nice, Stina, to hear your very short notes. They come out very clear and we enjoyed them. And what I enjoyed most there is this comment of ensuring going forward country-level coordination. Because even the so-called local organization, they will need country. Just like we here, we have been controlled by Norwegian government, they will also need to be controlled by the country. So my question there is, how do we envisage this to go about? Because if you look at the Norwegian system before, we used to have a multilateral supply, bilateral, and civil society. I think it is fair to say, over time, the bilateral has really gone down, squeezed, and most of it is being channeled to the multilateral. And when you're talking about multilateral, to me, UN system is one thing, but the World Bank, that's another thing. Now, to what extent are we really going to support these countries to truly coordinate development on their own, while also in the climate of the multilateral, and especially in the current climate of the debt in those countries? So that is where I'm a bit surprised. Yeah? Another thing is also the government. How do we work with the people?
I think when I was saying that we would have conversations afterwards to continue.
You know, I come from Kristiansand. I have to go to Kristiansand. That's why I have to spit everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for really excellent comments, and everyone. I think there's so much knowledge just in this room, and we need to find ways of, I would have wanted to organize it as a fishbowl where we can have some of these discussions. But with that, we have 1 minute each almost for you to answer. So again, conversations will continue, but yeah, what would you like to respond to?
Yeah, I'll try to, thank you for the questions. I will try to answer the best I can within 1 minute. There is this important question about accountability and who should we be accountable to. First, we are accountable to the communities that we are serving or that we are claiming to serve. This is very important for them to feel like what we are giving them, what we are serving to them is adding value. But also, importantly, accountable to people who give us the money. This is not money for fun. This is taxpayer money. People dig into their pockets to pay taxes. So we have to be accountable to these people. First of all, when we are accountable to the communities, it is obvious that we are accountable to their donors, to the taxpayers. When the lives of people change, then we are accountable to. And it is not very hard to show what you have done when you have done it the right way. It's not very hard. Even if you don't have enough words to describe it, someone will describe it for you. I really don't know if I understood well about the question of visualization. All the organizations are, of course, they have their logos, they have their communications to make, and I don't know how I should respond to the visualization question, what it means. Sometimes it means being part of that family, being grateful for the service that that organization is doing, and identifying with that organization means identifying with people who give the little they can to help you in the situation. The important questions from NORAD about how local organizations can show results. I think this is, and I believe this is very important to discuss with all the organizations that you are funding. Because sometimes donors have unfortunately promoted the traditional way of reporting. I think it's important to sit down and redesign what kind of way is important for the local actors. Look at their perspective. How do they want to report? And accountability, by the way, means also that whatever comes from the community, what suggestions the community have been put into implementation. And you cannot fully implement them if you don't have a clause in your reporting that allows you to do that. I hope I'm making sense, but if we are reporting in a wrong way, I think donors also, or funders also need to ask themselves, how can we do it better? How can we support them to report in a right way? How can we not promote the traditional way of reporting, but then what other aspects can we include in the reporting to capture the new realities? I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Anne.
Yeah, I think Cole has actually made very good responses to most of the questions, and I don't think I'm going to repeat what he has said. But I think I just wanted to address the question on accountability. And I wanted to give an example of, again, participatory grant making. I think as NORAD, that's the name of the organization. Yeah, I think the flexibility that we're seeing with some of these private funders as they try out to give direct resourcing to local actions, I think that sort of perspective is what you might want to have, because it would then allow you to not just stick to the numbers when you're looking for results, and it would allow you to experience impact in other ways. So just like Wall said, if you can allow your systems to be flexible enough to be able to experience that level of impact from that lens, then that would be the answer to you guys opening up to the possibilities of new ways of reporting. Yeah.
I think you have
one second. Just one second, something I left out. I'm so sorry. If you are receiving success stories, you also have to question that as a funder. You should start thinking about how to receive failure stories, because they are very much part of the story. Yeah.
And the conversation is to be continued. So thank you all so much for coming, for engaging here with us. Thanks those online for watching. I want to particularly thank you, the speakers. We've learned so much from both of you. It was really excellent to have you here, as well as to the Statssekretær. And I also want to thank Hilde Hunolvatn from Fellesrådet, Hilde Refsi from NTNU, Nabia Ahmed and Agnete Sjunsby from PRIO, and all of those at Vega Sena for making this all possible. And we can see how much competence we have on this topic and how much engagement and how people want to do things differently. So let's make sure that we have collective discussions and co-creation. I think that's the buzzword here. Thank you so much.